Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you learned some new information today. My name is Dahlia. I'm a peer mentor with Nevada Money Mentors. We have a wonderful team of people here to help us learn about some great stuff. We're going to be talking about student loans, how your loans are impacted by the CARES Act, and sharing a bit about our program if you need some support. On the line, we have Camille, a financial aid advisor, Amy, a financial specialist, and then also we have Devin and Dee, who are also peer mentors with Nevada Money Mentors. Okay, so just some housekeeping items. This presentation should take about 30 minutes to share with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat box and someone on the team will get back to you. We'll also have some time at the end for any additional questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so to keep things exciting, we have some trivia questions throughout the presentation. So I hope everyone has watched Stranger Things before this. So the first question is, what is this character's name? And you can go ahead and just leave your answers in the chat box. Dustin, yes, you got it. Congratulations. We have a bunch of fun trivia questions throughout the presentation, so, just type in the chat box. With that said, let's begin, and I'll pass it on to our next presenter, Camille, so she can share some great information with all of you.
All right, well, thank you, Dahlia. So yes, my name is Camille. Let's go over a few loan types that you probably have or may have in the future. So the main two types of federal student loans, one's the subsidized loan and one's the unsubsidized loan. So if you look at the images, the less scary of the monsters is the better one. So the subsidized loan, that's the one where the government pays interest on it and essentially acts interest-free while you're in school. So that way, when you are out of grace period, you owe the same amount of money that you borrowed on the principal. With the unsubsidized loan, you got to be a little careful with it because interest does accrue from the time that it is dispersed to the student. One of the things that I wish I had done when I was in school, or even in between going to grad school and undergrad, was just pay the interest while I was in school. That just makes everyone's life a little bit less stressful, specifically the borrowers. So let's go on to the next slide. So this one, it's just kind of showing different repayment options. When students initially get into repayment, so after your 6-month grace period, you will be normally slot into the standard repayment plan. That one basically will divvy up your amounts into a 10-year repayment plan, and they're going to be equal amounts that you pay. Now, in terms of the repayment amount itself, there are ways for you to change your repayment plan to fit what's going on in your life at that moment in time. So let's say after you graduate, maybe you didn't get into the most lucrative position yet, so you kind of have to work your way up into that career field. There is stuff like an income-based repayment plan, especially for students that may be looking into the loan forgiveness program, those kinds of things. There are specific repayment plans that work with the loan forgiveness aspect of the program. So you just want to make sure that you go and talk to your lender. You can always email them. They're great on the chat features as well. I was able to get a lot of my questions answered just by doing the chat because sometimes I get anxious and I don't like talking to loan servicers sometimes. So yeah, there's lots of different options and it just depends on what's going on in your life. So on the next slide, one of the great resources that are available to students, there's a website, it's called studentaid.gov. You may have gone there before. This is where you would be doing your entrance counseling. This is also where you would be doing exit counseling. Any type of loan related questions will be answered there as well. So the Department of Ed really did a good job putting everything together and summarizing and keeping all the information in one place. And what this slide is showing is actually a snapshot of one of the cool features that they have, which is the repayment estimator. So what you can do is you can log in with your FSA ID. So those are the credentials you created for when you did your FAFSA and all that. And it can pull in your specific loan information. And then you can put in, where you want to be living. So if you're not going to be in Nevada, maybe you're going to be relocating to Utah or California. And then if you're married, and what your AGI will be, and just like a ballpark figure. And then you can see what the repayment would look like on the different plans. So it's a great feature. It kind of helps you figure out and plan out a little bit more in terms of what's going to be going on in your life. And then I think the next part of it is a question. The next slide, please. All right, so Stranger Things. What does Eleven steal from the store? Any guesses? Yes. Yeah. Oh, we got two. So yes, Mario, you're correct. It is Eggo waffles. And for whatever reason, I've totally been craving it this time around during quarantine. I don't know what that means. So, all right. Next up is going to be Devin, and he'll be talking to us a little bit more about the CARES Act.
Thank you, Camille. So now we're going to talk about the CARES Act's effects on many student loans. If you have not heard yet, the government and Department of Education has created a suspension of payments until September 30th. So let's break down the loans, what loans qualify, and some of the details behind the process. Let's just start off by saying this information might not be completely applicable to those who are going to graduate this year because the grace period will end in November, that's 6 months after you graduate. But for those who are listening that are already paying off their loans, this info is very valuable, and it's just good to know maybe for a friend or whoever might be affected because there's some big impacts. First off, the loan type that it must be to qualify is a direct loan from the Department of Education, which makes up a vast majority of student loans in the country. Institutional loans like Perkins loans or private loans are not involved in this policy, although you can try to contact your lender to see if you can work something out, like a postponement on the payments, and we'll kind of get a reminder of that at the end of this slide. Now let's just look at some of the details on the suspension and what kind of impacts they make. So this suspension until September 30th will still be reported as paid on your credit record, whereas if you used to not pay them, that would harm your credit score, so that's great news. Additionally, no interest will be incurred during this time, and that goes for those still in school who have unsubsidized loans. So that will actually affect people that might not even be graduating this year that are with us right now, or people that the grace period would still not have any interest. So finally, forgiveness programs will consider these months until September 30th as actual payments. This is basically just saying that your forgiveness program time span will not be affected by the impacts of the virus. Now I think the next one is a question again. So next slide, please. Okay, so how does Joyce communicate with Will while he is in the Upside Down? Not radio, yes, Mario. Christmas tree lights. Yep, they put them up on the wall. Mario's killing it. Now we'll just bring it to Amy for some budgeting tips for studying.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. Amy Nelson here. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about maybe a little bit of the bigger picture here. So I want you to start thinking, for those of you who are getting ready to graduate, start to think about what is your current and even future earning potential. For those of you who are on the line with us and maybe already graduated, where are you currently sitting at with your annual salary, and how is that money divvied up into expenses each month? When you're looking at building a budget for the first time, it's important to also note those obligations that you have to pay, such as your student loan repayment. And we want to know what's a reasonable amount for you to pay for your loans based on your personal situation. So you can see in this slide here, it says about 5 to 15% could go towards debt payments in a regular budget. But if you're having some trouble meeting those obligations, we really suggest that you reach out to your loan servicer to sort through those various repayment types that Camille just talked about to find one that's going to work better for you. Because as she mentioned, you're entered into that standard repayment. But when you're looking at this and you're not sure, if you're like, I don't even know what I could afford yet, maybe you have a job on the horizon that you'll be starting once you graduate, we recommend the first thing that you do is start by building up a budget. So we use this chart, and you can find other charts and recommendations simply online. Google's great. And use the charts to kind of guide you, to help you ensure that your spending is in alignment with these recommendations that we have here, as well as what's your values, what's important to you, right? You may not be one to spend much on transportation or maybe food or discretionary spending like going out. So you would have a higher chunk going to your debt or your savings, or vice versa. So a great guideline for you here. We meet with a lot of students on campus and help them build their budgets. If you haven't done it before, Nevada Money Mentors is a great resource for you. We can help you. But this is just a great guide for those students who are kind of like, I don't know if I'm spending as I should or what I should be spending in each of those expense categories. So with that, we wanted to give you more of a glimpse based on some salaries that you may anticipate receiving in the future. A couple things here just to note that we pulled these monthly wages off of an average mid-range starting salary of $47,500. So from there, we also took out the federal taxes, FICA, Medicare, and we also included a 10% off of the gross income of the $47,500 to contribute to a retirement plan. So if your employer offers, let's say, a 401k retirement program, we recommend that from the get-go you contribute to that. So this 10% was already taken off of this. The average monthly wages here minus the taxes and those other deductions I talked about includes the 10% that goes to that 401k. So this scenario also is a single person, no dependents. We looked at a loan amount of $30,000. It was $15,000 for subsidized loans and $15,000 for unsubsidized loans at a rate of about 5.05%. So that's just some background info to give you as we're looking at this here. Keep in mind too, this is just estimates. We use some calculators online and we're using this just for illustration purposes. But if you were to look at the monthly salary here of a little bit over $2,800, almost $2,900 actually, we said between that 5 and 15% recommendation that you could put towards your debts, you're looking at about $318 payment. Another tip just to think about when you're looking at student loans, and maybe you're still in your undergrad and not graduating soon and just joined us today to just know more about your student loans. Our tip is that your entire student loan debt should be no more than 100% of your first year's salary expectation. So for example, if you're a teacher and you're anticipating maybe starting at $30,000, our recommendation would be that you borrow as a whole through your undergrad program no more than $30,000 total. So you can see here also that we included just some other monthly expenses you might include in your budget, such as your rent and food, utilities, car, transportation, and some additional savings. So we really encourage, especially during this time, that you can save everything that you can. That will just increase your cash flow over the next few months to keep it cushion in case you have a little bit of trouble finding a job or if you get some cuts in your current pay. So after those deductions are taken out, you could see the month end comes to be about $218 here. If you break that down per week, that only allows you $55 for all of the rest of the discretionary spending. I like to call it luxury stuff. The stuff that you might be able to live without, but it's also a very important part of your social life and just the values that you might have. So I know we recently ordered some dinner out at our house for a family of 4. I have my husband and our 2 daughters who are quite young, and we paid $80 for that dinner to come to our house. So $55 per week, we already busted the budget according to that. So really important that you're keeping track of what are you spending compared to what you're bringing in, and over the next few months, really keeping track of those expenses using some tools such as budget worksheets. Apps are great, and sometimes through your banking tools. So with that, I just want to jump to kind of a little bit of a reminder checklist here for you. Remember the website that Camille was talking about where you can log in with your FSA ID and pull up your own loans and play around with some estimates of payments, as well as complete your exit counseling, is studentaid.gov. We also encourage that you know who your servicer is on your loans. So the servicer is the one that you will actually be paying back your loans. And you want to work directly with them to set up any alternative repayment plans that you have or additional payments that you have, questions if you have them, or if you're unable to make payments, communicate with your servicer right away. Another recommendation after you complete sort of that checklist upon graduation where you've done your exit counseling, you've reached out, maybe logged into your servicer's website and figured out what your payments will be, is to check your credit report. That should be something that we do every year, and you can do it for free annually at annualcreditreport.com. That's a good idea just to understand how your student loans are being reported on your credit report, as well as impacting your credit score, so that you have some financial freedom for larger purchases down the road if you were to apply for some credit products. Also, know when your grace period ends. For those of you who are graduating in May, you will be looking at making your first loan payments in November. So know when your payment begins if you are graduating, of course, at a later date. And then work with the servicer, as I mentioned before, on selecting the repayment plan that works best for you. The standard plan will have you done in 10 years, but sometimes can come with a heftier payment. You might inquire about those income-based repayments that Camille referred to help you make ends meet in the days to come, and then you can always work with your servicer to adjust those. And then make sure, as far as your credit goes, you want to ensure payments are on time. That's the number one thing that impacts your credit score, is making your payments on time every month. And then if you're making your loan payments regularly, you will also avoid defaulting, which can have some very negative implications on your credit report and score and future availability of credit. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dee, who is gonna, oops, I forgot about this quick question. What is the name of the town that Stranger Things takes place in? Holton, close, starts with an H, you're right, you're right. You want me to give it to you? Okay, it's Hawkins. Hawkins, thanks for playing along there. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over to the wonderful Dee, who will talk to us a little bit about some extra resources available to you on campus.
Hi guys. So just wanted to give you a quick background over who we are. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation with all the information on student loans. So we are Nevada Money Mentors. We're a free on-campus resource, and we're located in the Fitzgerald Student Services Building, which is right across from the Raggio on campus. What we do is one-on-one financial coaching sessions, workshops, tabling events, presentations such as the one that you're watching right now. And you've probably seen us around campus giving out donuts or free coffee or something like that. Next slide, please. So we are also available on social media as well as financial aid. So here's all of our social media information. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can follow the financial aid department on Instagram and Facebook. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to say thank you for coming out to this desktop diner. Join us next week for our last desktop diner of this month. It'll be the last one for Financial Literacy Month, which, if you didn't know, that's why we're doing all of this month, because April is National Financial Literacy Month. So come on out to next week's presentation. We'll be talking about different money myths that you may have heard and debunking them or confirming them. Next slide, please. And we just want to say a special thank you to our Amy, who is in charge of Nevada Money Mentors, and the loans team. Camille was here for the presentation today. You probably heard her speaking. Everyone who's on this slide contributed to the presentation, so we just wanted to give a big thank you to everyone. Below their pictures and their positions, you can find the emails for both Nevada Money Mentors and financial aid. So if you do have any questions that come up after the presentation that you want to ask, feel free to send an email to the financial aid department. Or if you want to come in for a coaching session to maybe talk about student loan repayment, feel free to shoot Nevada Money Mentors an email. Okay, I think that's it. So we're just going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in our chat box, and we'll answer to them to the best of our ability. Yes, you actually, yes, Abigail, you can access one-on-one coaching virtually now. We're doing it via Zoom. So you just go in and go to our website and make an appointment like you normally would. And then before your session, your peer mentor will send you a link to the Zoom meeting.
Awesome. If we don't have any other questions, we look forward to seeing your emails.